Probably ought to unmute. I could speak better. So we do have we have one great program coming up. We have Making Mead with Jay Francis. Jay's in charge of our Fun Day this year, and he'll also be presenting it at the Fun Day. And then we are actively searching for ideas for future programs. I thought of one that I'm not sure others might be interested in, but maybe you would be. So I'll say it and you guys unmute and tell me if you think that's a horrible idea. So Cecil and I sell our honey at farmers markets and have for 30 some years. And I got busted for selling to a farm store. And because in Kansas, you have to have a certified kitchen if you sell anywhere other till the end user. So they're coming on Monday. We have not made a certified kitchen, but I work out at an orchard that has a certified kitchen. And I'm gonna use theirs, and that'll buy us some time till we can get one made. So I was wondering if people would think it would be interesting for some of us to talk about our experiences and when you have to have a certified kitchen, when you don't have to have one, and some of the particulars and the ins and outs of what we've had to go through and stuff. So that was one idea that seems to have maybe something to do with value added. And then I've had 3 people tell me they want to know how to make beeswax wraps, and I know a couple of us have done those. So that would be like a part of a program because that wouldn't take a whole hour or anything. So we're open for ideas. And what do you think about personal experiences in actually making a certified kitchen? So I see one positive there.
I think that'd be a good idea, Julie. I know we're having the similar conversations we've had here in Nebraska, similar type laws and rules here. So that's something that we tried to talk about in our meetings with limited success, but it's something we're going to even try to talk about a little bit in our convention later in October. In terms of at least getting people the food handler license that they need to get.
And
Class. Yeah.
So the personal experience part of it is big because it's hoops, jump through, don't feel like maybe it has much meaning except that you're jumping through the hoops. So were you thinking of maybe getting somebody from the state to come out and actually talk about the rules as well as personal experience, or just kind of 2 or 3 people and their trials and tribulations?
I was kind of thinking both, like maybe we'd have a little longer program and have someone from the state, because we're going to have her come out before we do anything. And that's kind of the most important thing everyone says is before you do anything, have them come out and they'll tell you if what you're thinking is enough or if you have to do more, we had one person tell us that the inspector came out before they did anything, and he even told them they didn't need a 3-hole sink because all he was bottling was honey. And I'm going, if you got a different inspector the next time, it'd be a whole different story, because that is, I've just never heard that. So I don't know. So no more Monday. She's coming Monday. We're taking a bottling tank and honey and stuff out to Gehringer's to their kitchen, and she's going to come Monday. And I thought I'd talk to her, but I don't know.
Yeah,
After she comes Monday, Tuesday, you might have a permanent spot at Gehringer's.
Yeah. Well, you have to pay yearly, and it's like everyone pays in March or April. And I thought, well, that gives us till March really, because you have to pay the full fee. Even if in 3 months I had one ready, I'd have to repay the fee for a different location, even though it was still me. So it's like, whatever.
Yeah, they'll change things on you too.
And it depends on the inspector that you get. They all say something different. We've had them come how many times to KHPA, and it's different every time. So I don't know. Anyway, So let me see if my Jason is on here. Yay!
Yeah.
So let's see, let me just look here. Everyone got on okay, it looks like. Maybe include different states. Okay, so Jason is on here and let me get out of this. No, not-
Jolie, up here in Nebraska, when Warren Nelson had his kitchen inspected, his inspector said they had to have stainless steel everything. But when I was at the UNLV lab, they told us that the plastic bottling food grade bucket was fine. So like you said, it depends on the inspector.
mm-hmm. I know, it's so weird. You guys, I can't remember how, oh, never mind. Yeah, okay. So Jason is on and he's talking to us about brewing beer with honey. And he's renowned in the Kansas City area. He's part of the Kansas City Brewmeisters organization, and he's gonna talk to us. Jason, do you know how to share your screen?
I do. Give me just a second.
I figured you were young enough to know what you were doing.
Yeah, 45 feels mighty old though. All right. I apologize. I'm on toddler duty tonight as well. So if you hear a kid
Oh,
screaming in the background, it's mine.
no, that's okay. We're a family-oriented organization, so.
All right. So hopefully this is popping up for everybody.
It looks fine. I'm gonna mute myself now. And then I can go over questions at the end with you that people put in the chat box if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So this isn't a terribly long presentation. I tried to keep this as simple as possible. The thing with home brewing is that there's a zillion different ways to do it. So tried to keep it as simple as I could. But brewing with honey, it's been around for quite some time. It's been around for well over 1,000 years. It actually started off in the Middle East, and then it made its way over to Europe, and then shortly after that, South America. Then it made its way up to North America, and really just kind of fell out of favor for a long time. It really didn't hit until about 30 years ago when a lot of breweries were starting to look at other ways to fortify how they made a beer. And they started adding honey to some of them. Now, a lot of times you'll go to a place and you'll have a beer and it'll say that it's a honey beer or it's made with honey. It's more oftentimes than not, it's really not with honey. It's made with a malt called honey malt, which has some of the same flavor characteristics that you might find with a with maybe a very light or somewhat nondescript clover honey. So it's really not made with actual wildflower or clover honey or any other type of honey. So I was a little disappointed to find that out on my own. So a lot of you guys are wondering, well, if I've never made a beer before, has anyone on here made beer before? I'm going to go with a no on that. So home brewing is really easy to get into, and it's very difficult to stop once you get going. It's very easy to get addicted to. If you do decide to give this a
Some
shot,
have made mead, but not beer. So,
oh, that
Okay.
works.
Yeah.
I do meat as well, so awesome. If you think you're going to save money by brewing beer, thinking that you're going to be able to make it for less than you can buy it at a store, that's not going to happen. You really have to kind of do it as a hobby, kind of a labor of love kind of thing. So if you're going to start doing it, the best thing that you can do is to get a starter kit, or it's a starter equipment kit. You can get it at your local homebrew shop. If you have one close to you, if you don't, you can always order them online. And I have some resources at the end of this that you can use to do that. Normally when you go in and you tell a homebrew shop, hey, I'm new, I just need a starter kit to get me going. The items listed here are usually what they'll recommend. It's usually around 2 7-gallon brewing buckets, which are food safe buckets. They're usually either PET plastic or HDPE. It's either, depends on what they have in stock. Sometimes it might only be 5 gallons, but usually it'll be 7. They'll give you an auto siphon, which is an easy way to transfer your beer from one bucket to another. It's just a plastic tube with another tube inside of it, and it allows you to just to siphon off. A large spoon. A lot of us have seen the long handled metal spoons before. All the necessary stoppers and airlocks, and it'll usually come with a somewhat inexpensive hydrometer. That's just to check the gravity on your beer to see what it's starting at and where it's going to finish. And when you get all of that, then you can actually start to make beer. A lot of what you may have is going to be at home is a 5-gallon brew pot. When I first started, I used a 3-gallon stock pot just because it was easy. And I had to switch from that. And the reason I had to switch, or I chose to switch, I didn't have to, I chose to. The reason I did that though is because there's 2 different types of brewing. There's extract brewing and then there's all grain brewing. I hear you. Go play. Go play, bud. No, not yet. Go play. You're fine. So extract brewing is what we're going to cover tonight. It's an easy way to get into this, get going, fairly inexpensive. All grain is how the big boys do it. So Anheuser-Busch, Coors, any craft brewery you go to, they're going to do all grain where it takes 8 hours to brew a beer in a day. I do the all grain now. I can attest to the fact it takes about, for homebrewers, it's about a 5.5, 6-hour brew day to make beer. So it's definitely not for the faint of heart. So what we're going to be doing, or at least going over, is this kind of recipe. It's a honey wheat. It's one of the easiest beers you can make. You can get all of the ingredients from a local homebrew shop, or you can order them online and you can use your own honey. The ingredients are 6 pounds of wheat liquid malt extract, an ounce of German hops. For this one, I use Tettnang, and a pouch of liquid yeast. Go through it, son. It will take 1 pound of honey for this recipe. If you already homebrew and you do something like all grain, I can easily send you the recipe for all grain. I have that in the little database I keep of homebrew recipes that I do. So it's a very small recipe, essentially 3 things that you have to buy. Once you buy it, you go through and you do what's called creating your wort. So when you create your wort, what you're doing is, before beer is beer, it's called wort. It's just sugar water. So you're going to want to get a clean pot that can hold probably 3.5 gallons of fluid. If it can only hold 3, you're still fine. You're just going to be pushing it a little bit. Once you have that, it's cleaned out, you can set it on your stove, put in about 2.5 gallons of good water. I say good water because water does make a difference. You wouldn't think that it would, but it does. If it's tap water, there's various additives in the tap water like chlorine and chloramines for, disinfecting, things like that to make it safe for us to drink. Those will come out in the beer and it's not a good flavor. So usually I'll go somewhere like Hy-Vee or Price Chopper, the local grocery store, and I'll just get the cheap spring water that's in the jugs. It's usually like 89 cents a container. Works out great. So if you're going to use well water, you can. It may also affect the flavor of the beer as well, but not as bad as if it was tap water. So what you're going to do is you're going to boil that water. And once it comes to a boil, you're going to take the pot off the burner. The reason for this is that you're going to add your liquid malt extract in. Once you add the extract in, if it's on a burner, there's a good chance that it's going to fall right to the bottom of that pot and it's going to start to stick and burn to the bottom of that pot. It's not a good flavor. So what we'll do is we'll normally take that pot off and just kind of set it off to the side, add the malt extract, stir it in, and then just return it to the burner so that it comes to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, then you can add your hops. Normally, you can do one of two things. You can add the hops just like you see here by dumping them in. Or what you can do is you can get a muslin cloth or cheesecloth and wrap them in it, and it keeps them more together so that they're not just completely floating in your wort there. Boil it for 60 minutes and then remove it from the heat. And essentially you're, for the most part, 3/4 of the way done making your wort at that point. Once you've removed it from the heat, you can start the cooling process. A lot of people may ask, well, I spent all this time heating this up. Why am I going to just cool it right back down? Well, there's a couple reasons. One is with those hops in there, if you didn't bag them or put them in cheesecloth or whatnot, and you can't pull them out and get rid of them, what that means is you have all that particulate in there from your hops, and up past 170 degrees, those hops are still contributing bitterness. They're still contributing their flavor characteristics. So it alters the flavor of that beer. So you want to try and, if you didn't bag your hops, you want to cool this down as quickly as possible. Also, there are certain off flavors that can be created and contributed by not cooling. So if you go through and you don't cool and you think that, well, maybe I can just leave my pot here overnight and I'll be okay, that's going to have some weird flavors that come out as well. So what we usually do, or at least what I did, is similar to this, minus all the garden hoses and stuff. What I would do is I would just do an ice bath, put it in the sink, dump a bunch of ice in the sink around it. It'll melt, dump some more ice on there, but stir the wort while it's in that ice so that it's circulating. It'll normally cool down within probably 20 minutes or so. You don't need it to be super cool. It does not need to be cold. The ideal temperature for a beer is usually in the low 70s. We try to get beer down to where it's about 68 or 70, just because that's the ideal temperature. But if it's 80 degrees even, you're fine. What that means is that if you chill it down to where it is, say 68 to 73, 74 degrees, you can pitch your yeast immediately after. Now, what we usually say or mean when we say pitch yeast is we're able to dump the wort into our brew bucket at that point, pitch our yeast, put the lid on, put an airlock on, and then set it aside so it can start fermenting. If your beer is hot, say it's still 80 or 90 degrees, you will need to let that sit a while. You cannot pitch your yeast while it's that hot. It will most likely not taste good. Yeast does not ferment well at 80, 90 degrees. There are some that do, but they are very very few. So most beer yeast appreciate anywhere from 68 to 72 degrees. So once you have cooled your wort down, you've pitched your yeast, it's in its brew bucket. You want to sit it somewhere dark, cool, or at least as cool as it can be, room temp. Don't put it somewhere like, say, a basement or an attic. I usually pick a closet if I've ran out of space. But you just want to avoid something that's really dusty or has critters like, maybe sugar ants or something that's really going to want to come in and see if they can get into your beer. In 24 to 48 hours, you should have a beer that's actively fermenting, which is what this picture is here. This is a beer that started that process. It creates a foam on the top called a crossin. It just starts to really be active, really, start actively fermenting. Once you notice that is fermenting, that's your countdown basically to when you add your honey. So you don't want to add your honey immediately when this is hot. As we all know, honey has a lot of flavor characteristics. It has a lot of aroma characteristics. A lot of those, if you put that into a pot with boiling sugar water, a lot of that will be driven off. You won't have that. All you're essentially doing at that moment is adding more of a sugar donation than anything. If you wait for the fermentation to start and it's around 24-hour period, then you add it, it'll still ferment all of that honey. You don't need to worry about your beer being sweet. It'll still eat all of the sugar that's there. But what it will do is it'll deliver all those flavor characteristics that you're looking for. So if you have a clover honey that has a really nice spice to it, like notes of cinnamon and certain other spices, that will come through in the beer. The same way with a really floral wildflower honey, it will come through in the beer. It'll save those characteristics. You take that over there. Skipped like 4 different pages here somehow. Oh, come on. So after fermentation is over, which will usually be between 7 to 14 days, it'll usually take about 7 to 10 days. Sometimes it takes 12 to 14, depending upon the beer. What will end up happening is during that time, you will have to decide how you're going to serve that beer. Do you want to bottle it? Do you want to keg it? I would not recommend kegging unless you're ready to, dedicate some money towards it. Bottling is definitely the easier route. If you have a local homebrew shop, go in, tell them, you know, I have a beer fermenting. I need to, you know, get what's necessary or know what I need to do to bottle that. Most homebrew shops will actively walk you through a demonstration on bottling. Bottling the beer is something that I could probably spend another 30, 45 minutes on tonight, just on bottling or kegging, because they're both very in depth as far as the processes go. Bottling sounds like it's easy. The actual activity is, but you know, the steps are numerous. The best way that you can make a beer, especially for this recipe with honey, like I said, 99 to 100% of the time, all that sugar ferments out. So there's no sugar left to eat. Normally what will be recommended if you're going to bottle is use priming sugar. The reason for that is that it will reactivate the yeast that are in that bottle. And after you've capped it, it's just hanging out. It'll actually start to re-ferment in the bottle and create your carbonation for you. I don't know if any of you guys have had like a German wheat beer or like a Boulevard wheat, where it says that it was re-fermented in the bottle. But that's what they're talking about. They add a small amount of sugar to the bottle and then let the yeast kick in and re-ferment the bottle to create that carbonation. It adds a really good flavor, especially to honey beers. It's pretty foolproof. You may have a bottle or two that might be over carbonated, but I mean, that's easy to resolve. You can very easily do that in a keg as well. But your local homebrew shop can really kind of go through and show you those steps and how they would recommend you do it. And if you're local and you do this and you need help bottling, let me know. I'd be more than happy to help you as well. But that is pretty much it. I do have these resources here in the presentation. These first two, if you're local to, if you're not local to Kansas City or in the metro area or within driving distance, these are probably the two biggest homebrew. These are the two biggest homebrew retailers online that you can order from. They have everything under the moon that you could ever want. If you are local to Kansas City, then these next three, these homebrew shops here are fantastic. They're very knowledgeable. They have great staff. And they also will usually have whatever you're looking for. And if you are local and you do decide to get into beer making, I heard somebody talking about being in Nebraska. There's some, if you do this in Nebraska, there's some really good homebrew clubs in Nebraska too, especially in the Lincoln area, called Lincoln Loggers. They're a really good group. But Kansas City Beer Meisters, they're the largest homebrew club in the area, and they have a wealth of knowledge. They meet the third Friday of every month, and then ZZ Hops is based out of Lee Summit, and they meet the third Monday of the month. Both of those are very good, a great group of people. You can't go wrong with either one of those for extra questions, or if you just wanted to come and see and kind of pick people's brains as to how you might do some other things with honey. But outside of that, that's pretty much the process. It is very simple. It's for the most part, it's simple, and it's quick. I think you can brew an extract beer probably from start to end. You're done within 2 hours. It really doesn't get easier than that. But if any of you do decide to do this and you decide to hit the all grain route, let me know and I'll send some more advice your way. but I am ready for any questions that you might have.
Okay, let's see. Becky says they've made honey beer before. Could you send the recipe, please, and thanks?
Sure.
Yeah, you kind of gave it in there that she might have asked that, but because it was kind of in your thing. And everyone, remember, these are recorded and they're available on the Kansas Honey Producers website, I think under archives. So, and what temperature do you boil at?
Um, when it comes to beer, a boil is a boil. So you don't want it to be something to where it is boiling out of the pot. But a decent rolling boil is fine. You don't want it to be a simmer, because obviously at that point, if you simmer, you don't get some of the contributions of flavor and bitterness from the hops that you would want. But just a decent rolling boil will work. As long as it's not hopping out of the pot, you're fine.
So
And
Jason, oh, I'm sorry. We've seen some kits that you just purchase the kit, and they pretty much made it foolproof, it looks like to us. And can you add honey to almost any of those kits? What do you do if you were to just add a pound of honey to one of your one of
can
the
add-
kits?
You can add honey to pretty much any beer kit. It's really going to be dependent upon what kind of flavor contribution you're looking for. Come here. Bring the kid here. No. Hey, go play, okay? You want to go play for a minute? No. Oh,
No.
show.
They know when you're distracted. It is just a given. It is.
Okay. All right, come here. You got to be good, okay? Come here. So, I mean, any of those kits you can add honey to. It's really not going to affect the overall recipe that they've used. What it will affect is, one, the amount of alcohol, because you're adding more sugar. That's more sugar for the yeast to consume. So it's going to make more alcohol. And if you do add honey, look at the type of beer that it is. If it's a honey wheat, you can add a multitude of different kinds of honey to it. If it's a stout, okay. If it's a stout, you may want to do maybe a darker honey, maybe add a little buckwheat to it. Something that, would give it, some of those characteristics that would go better with, a stout or a porter. So the big thing is, when you go to look at those recipes, really kind of look at what kind of beer it is. Look at what kind of beer it is, and then, just choose a honey that'll go along with it.
Good. Okay, thanks.
Denise says there's a homebrew store in Ozark, Missouri, and Springfield. And Jim Putnam, I'm so glad to see you on here, Jim, says, can you use wooden spoons for mixing, and how much priming sugar is added per bottle?
So you can definitely use a wooden spoon. There's nothing wrong with that. We usually prefer metal just because of the fact that it's easier and it works well. But you can definitely use a wooden spoon. Just make sure it's a long handled wooden spoon, because nothing hurts more than molten sugar water getting on your hand. Also, for the priming sugar, it really depends upon the amount of carbonation that you want in the bottle. If you want just say, a slight amount of fizz, you might add, a quarter cup to a 5-gallon batch of beer. But if you want a full on, if you want a full on head when you pour your beer out of the bottle, normally what you'll do is it's usually around a pound, and it's not added into the actual bottle. It's added into the bottling bucket that you'll use to bottle from.
And then Jackie was wondering about the recipe for grain beer and
Yeah.
when do you remove the hops?
So I can send that all grain recipe over to you tonight and you can disseminate it amongst everyone. I'll actually send both over to you. You remove the hops at the end of the 60 minutes. So once that 60 minutes is up, take the hops out. If you bagged them. If you did not bag them, you are not going to be able to take them out. The reason is 90% of the time when you buy hops, they're going to be in a pellet form. So if you ever went to a zoo and you got the pellets to feed some of the animals, it's very similar to pellets like that, but it's hot matter. And those break apart once they hit the boiling liquid, and they're very small particles. So by bagging them or putting them in like cheesecloth or muslin, maybe 2 layers, you can go through and it can help contain a lot of that because it'll kind of ball up inside of there. Some of it will escape, but most of it will ball up in there. And you'll keep a lot of that particulate matter out of your beer, and you can take it out at that point. But if you have bagged your hops, definitely take them out at that 60 minute mark once you're done.
And do you have starting and finish gravity numbers?
Starting gravity on this before adding the honey was around 1056 or 1.056. After adding the honey, it went up to around 1.063. After that, it finished at around 1.008. So it's a dry beer.
And then she's asking if she sent you a list of hops, could you determine if it's bittering or flavoring?
Absolutely. Most definitely.
Any other questions, anyone? If he sends me his recipe, Robert can put it on the KHPA website, and he's posted, like when Becky gave a talk, he posted her recipe, so he has a place on there where he can post stuff. Can you explain it any better, Becky, where they'd find it?
I'm sorry, what was the question, Jolie? I apologize.
It's okay. If he posts the recipe,
You don't want it.
where does Bob put it? It's just on the KHPA website.
The soap recipe that we did a while back was just right there where you would look for these recordings. So it was just like,
Under archives then.
yes, yeah, kind of right there with the recordings and with the programs. And so I'm pretty sure that's where he put it the last time. So we can also email it to people if they wanted it, because you had to give your email for this. So we could actually email it to you if you wanted.
Well, that's true, yeah. So, and Jackie is asking if you would give them your email address and you could send it to them, but if you're comfortable with that.
Oh, no, absolutely. You can, if anybody has a pen handy, it's Jason Elder, ELDER 77 @yahoo.com. Feel free to email me with any questions you might have. I'll definitely do my best to answer them. And if I can't, I will find an answer for you.
Any other questions? Does anyone want to unmute and ask anything? Jason, this was an excellent presentation, very clear cut, really concise. That was really good. And I would like to offer you, if you come to the Overland Park Farmers Market to booth 39, that's where we sell our honey. I would love to gift some honey to you. So,
No, that'd be great. I've actually used your guys' honey before. So
oh, well, good.
I actually used it in a mead that we served at the Parkville Beer Fest a little while ago. So
Right.
worked
Well,
really well.
we sure appreciate your taking your time, and your son or daughter,
Oh,
son,
Stan.
deserves a special prize. He was great background music in the,
Yeah, we have a bunch of your honey sticks here. So
oh, well, good.
he's trying to make
Well,
his way through them.
well, there's lots of thank yous from everyone, and we had a nice sized group. This was we really do appreciate it, and thank you so much.
No, it was a pleasure being here, and I'm glad you guys do this.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. We've done soap making and lotions
Oh,
and
nice.
making creamed honey, candles with beeswax. What else? I don't know. We've done over a year's worth once a month. We've been doing them, so it's
Oh, cool. Okay.
kind of a good thing that came out of COVID, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All
well,
right.
thank you. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And like I said, feel free to email me any other questions that you may have, and I will definitely get those recipes over to you here in just a little while.
Okay. And if anyone missed his email address, email me and I'll get it to you. So I've got his email. So anyway. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay. Really, if you guys have any ideas for future, let's see. Thank you so much, Jason, for your insight and time sharing. And thank you, KHPA, for sharing these presentations. So. All right. Okay. Oh, someone else put future topic, success stories based on presentations on this monthly call. He started a concierge service because of this monthly meeting. Well, that's good. So good. All right. All right. Thanks, everyone.